I was talking to Megan just a few minutes ago, and it looks like it's going to be outer space or outer space meets poetry tonight. That may be a strange combination, or maybe not. It may be a little bit like Godzilla meets Bambi, but I'm not sure which is which. So, as background for this first piece, it helps you to know that I'm a space cadet, or used to be. I'm a retired space cadet now. But it started at about age 5, and it meant, besides having my head in the clouds, that I wanted to grow up to be an astronaut. Well, to keep it short and sweet, I failed. I did not become an astronaut, and I decided afterwards that, well, maybe failure was the best thing, because I went on to become a spacecraft navigator. And before people call the folks with the white straitjackets out, I should say that I navigated NASA unmanned spacecraft to every planet in the solar system, including Pluto. Even though Pluto is not a planet, it was demoted from planethood about 10 years ago. But I'm from Sedona, and I may not be the only spacecraft navigator in Sedona, the land of vortices and other UFO things, but I'm probably the only one who actually did work for NASA. So here's to failure. I probably wouldn't have gone to these planets if I hadn't failed, and that leads into the first piece, which is about failure. This is a newspaper article, an op-ed piece that I wrote about 17 years ago, and it's about the Mars polar lander. It's so old that maybe it's not relevant today, but I think it is relevant to tomorrow. And maybe you'll see why at the end. But it's titled, Embracing the Future. Dearly beloved, we gather to celebrate an arrival, not mourn a departure. Let us give thanks for the future and bury the past. Conversation dies and silence gathers as the minutes tick, tick, tick towards 12:39 in the afternoon of a Southern California day at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I am jammed cheek by jowl with 50 other people in a narrow hallway running half around a glass-enclosed operations room. Another 30 people wedge into that small room. Dan Golden, NASA administrator, is there, a gray eminence, watching quietly and lethally. There's Richard Cook, project manager, and bird like Ed Stone, who is the JPL director. There's John McNamee, project developer, looking intensely haunted and somber. Where are we and where are we going? Take more risks. That's what Golden said, the NASA administrator, at the beginning of his administration. Don't be afraid of failure. More recently, he added a stern codicil, but don't fail. We've been at risk for 11 months since our dearly departed little brother, Mars polar lander, became irretrievable at launch. Today, December 3rd, 1999, a cloud of uncertainty begins to precipitate into reality as we listen for the first available peep from little brother. We won't know for several minutes yet. 13, 12, 11. You have to roll dice in the space biz. There's no getting around it. Everyone in the room and hallway has something on the line. For the mission engineers and scientists, it's years of their lives and careers. For latecomers like myself, one of the navigators trying to figure out where we're going, only a few weeks of commitment are at stake. Only a few weeks? Wrong. It has been an agony of weekends, long nights, and Thanksgiving holidays sacrificed to the demanding God of exploration. The God of exploration. He has been benevolent to Viking and Voyager and Galileo and Pathfinder, and he has been cruel to most Martian missions, to Mars Observer and Mars Climate Observer. You have to sacrifice time, money, talent, and ingenuity. He doesn't provide safe passage to Mars for peanuts. You have to bleed and sacrifice a virgin or two. 8, 7, 6. Where are we and where are we going? All conversation ceases. All eyes lock onto the display of the spectrum analyzer. A green, fuzzy, flat line lies horizontally across the range of radio frequencies expected from our departed kin. 3, 2, 1. Collective intake of breath. In moments, we will shout joyfully to see a tiny needle-sharp peak of signal rise from that fuzzy, flat line to tell us that our dearly departed is dearly arrived. Yet now the possibility of failure congeals. Until now, it was abstract and empty, was simply the dark underside of a probability cloud drifting far away at the horizon. Now, a nugget of information is propagated over 14 minutes of light travel time from Mars to Earth, to the Deep Space Network, to this control room, to this display, to these eyes. Now, the probability cloud rolls overhead, leaden black underbelly churning malevolently. A lightning stroke, abrupt and powerful, strikes nearby. Reality arrives. The flat line remains flat line. The nugget of information is the null bit, the absence of a needle-sharp peak, the lack of signal where signal is desperately wanted. Wait, maybe the timing is off. Maybe the receivers need tweaking. Maybe the antenna is mispointed. Maybe. Silence. A downpour of cold, wet reality begins, soaking the mind, depressing the soul. Dan Golden's face darkens. Ed Stone stares blankly at the spectrum display. John McNamee gazes into space. 5, 6, 7. Speculation begins in whispers. Maybe it's in safing mode. Maybe Earth is temporarily out of sight. Maybe. There are 100 possibilities. Over the next few days, I will watch Richard Cook's cheerful face filling TV screens, always optimistic, upbeat. There's always one more thing to try, one more thing. But I feel in my heart from that first moment, as do most of us assembled here, dearly beloved, that the roll of the dice has come up snake eyes. Our dearly departed has truly departed, smeared all over the landscape, or maybe rolled into a ball at the foot of a steep slope, or maybe there are many possibilities, but only one actuality, which we may learn when the first human explorers eventually reach the forbidding southern climes of Mars. Meanwhile, we deal with failure, breast beating, with investigation boards, program restructuring, launch cancellations, and growth, and lessons learned. and a chance to do it better, because we will do it better again and again, because we melt in the crucible of failure and we mold to something better. But more fundamentally, because we, as human beings, worship the God of exploration and will sacrifice for the future. Dearly beloved, give thanks for the future and bury the past. Where are we and where are we going? To Mars and beyond. And now, after failure, here's a success that happened not too long ago. Does July 14th mean anything to anybody other than Bastille Day? How about the name New Horizons? That was the spacecraft that went to Pluto last year on Bastille Day. And that had special significance for Flagstaffians, since Pluto was discovered right here at Lowell Observatory by Clyde Tombaugh. So here's a shortened blog post that I wrote about the Pluto flyby last year while I helped navigate that event. This is for you, Clyde, wherever you are. But actually, we know exactly where you are. Your ashes are on board that spacecraft. Where are we? This is a theme of mine. Pluto. Closest approach was at 7:49 Baltimore time this Tuesday morning, July 14th. Pluto, as seen by New Horizons, was about 22 times the size of the moon, the size of the full moon. Where are we going? The outer environs of the solar system, deeper into the Kuiper Belt for another encounter with one of a couple of recently discovered heavenly bodies, an asteroid, thence to the Oort cloud, and onward into the Milky Way. Pluto. Been there, done that. Remember, navigation is about the voyage, not the destination. Onward to the next body, onward with the next mission, to the next dream, hatching in our restless souls. It is a never-ending journey. What's the point? Will any of us ever live on these new worlds we paid lots of money to get to? I think not. I think the era of solar system settlement is far beyond the horizon of our lifetimes. We have too many wars to fight and disasters to recover from. It will happen, but not soon. Not until we've evolved the mean streak and stupidity out of ourselves. Will we wipe ourselves out? No. The human race is hardy, and some will survive the worst disasters, be it nuclear war, devastating climate change, or a random asteroid strike. Some will survive and begin the climb back to civilization and the next disaster, just as it happens in Walter Miller's classic science fiction novel, A Canticle for Leibowitz. A Canticle for Leibowitz. Read that if you want a chilling yet poignant depiction of our future. Science fiction writers are the long-term navigators of our species. They tell us where we're going if we don't make course corrections. Meanwhile, life presses on, full of struggle and despair, but sometimes with a glimmer of hope on the horizon. The hope is that we learn a little more today than we knew yesterday. The hope is the beginning of the next adventure. Bon voyage, Clyde Tombaugh, onward to the Kuiper Belt and the outermost reaches of our solar system. Why go? I think I said it pretty well myself in an op-ed for the LA Times as Voyager finished Neptune a long time ago and headed out towards the deeps of the galaxy. The very fact of her improbable existence, cruising among the stars for billions of years to come, say this to any potential finder: I am from the planet Earth. I am of the human race. We are small and insignificant, but our souls are large because we have set out on a journey to know the universe. Now, after all that relentless optimism, I'll read a slightly darker piece from my novel, "The Darkest Side of Saturn." It's about asteroids and ballet, two things that just naturally go together. It's about what happens to two astronomers, Harris and Diana, when they discover a dangerous asteroid that might hit the Earth in a few years. They don't know for sure that it'll hit. There's a low probability attached to it, but not zero probability. So they quarrel about how to announce it. He wants to go fast. She wants to go slow. Behind her back, he blasts the news out to the world, which infuriates her. So they have it out between them in a violent and even bloody fight that turns erotic at the end. This leads into an edgy romance. And then with his sudden celebrity status, Harris unwillingly acquires a following of New Age true believers. And he becomes a reluctant prophet of doom. And meanwhile, that asteroid just keeps barreling along. Are we all going to die or not? I had a hard time deciding what to read for this one because the novel covers a lot of ground, from wrecked marriages to romance to global disaster to religious extremism versus science, speculations about metaphysics, consciousness, beliefs. In other words, I had fun. I got to throw in fake Bible verses and a geek chorus, not a Greek chorus, a geek chorus, chanting hymns. So I had to write hymns and Bible verses for this. And yeah, there's even ballet. I got the ballet inspiration from my daughter Chelsea, right over here. I watched her dance from the age of 5 through college and right up to the present time. So here's a chapter after Harris has done a dramatic press conference announcing the asteroid they've discovered. It plays the evening news big time around the world and gets him 15 minutes of fame, or maybe a little bit longer. But after a while, that fades, and he tries to get a jaded world to do something about the potential threat. Potential? Nobody cares about potential. Call us after the disasters. Don't bother us before it. So, an unthinking world snores and then goes on to the next reality show. But some people care. Some people are true believers, and they latch on to Harris and they hang on to every word that he speaks. He's their new guru. The chapter title is Cornbread Theology. In the second week of November, a few weeks after first meeting them, Harris accepted a dinner invitation with the believers. That's believers with a capital B. It was against his better judgment, but he'd come to realize that he liked these people. their sincerity and enthusiasm, and basic kindness and decency, even though he was appalled at their beliefs. They knew he grew up in the South, so they put on a Southern home-style meal in his honor. They set tables in the living room and seated Harris at the head of the longest one. They passed around platters of chicken and dumplings, black-eyed peas, collard greens boiled with salt pork, homemade sweet bread and butter pickles, jalapeno cornbread, round molded cakes of butter. The believers had believers of their own, and there were new people and talk of more to come. There were children, too, toddlers, swirling around the tables, stirring up pleasant commotions. Harris kissed all the women and children on their cheeks. "Tell us again," they begged him, "about the solar system and creation, please." After his performance for them just a few weeks earlier, it was already a ritual. He told them about space and astronomy, predicted colonies on the moon and Mars, speculated on panspermia and evolution and life in the universe. They asked him about the face on Mars, the Sedona vortices, UFOs, extrasensory perception, and little green men. He gently rejected their notions, yet somehow they regarded everything he said as complete and utter confirmation of those same notions. But maybe he was nudging them in the right direction. Maybe there was the tiniest smidgen of hope that rationality would prevail. Otherwise, he worried, the foundations of their world rested on the sand of myth, magic, and mysticism. He made a mental list of things not to do in the future. One does not speculate in the presence of true believers. One never pontificates about God or the meaning of life. One never even implies one has life-changing secrets to share. And as the evening progressed, he honored his precepts entirely by their violation, one by one. The believers wanted magic, the supernatural, divine guidance, if not by the traditional God, then a substitute, like the Star Wars Force. What's the source of the Force? He rhymed playfully. Where does the magic come from? Who provides it? They couldn't say. It was just there. Ambient magic, manna from heaven, fallout from a ubiquitous benevolence. But they wouldn't say the word God. It's just another religion without that word, or the God word, but people can be just as fundamentalist about it as religion. Don't you think? No, they protested. We're not fundamentalist or anything like that. But yes, you are, he insisted. We're all fundamentalists. All of us. Great cornbread. We're all fundamentalists because we want something basic to believe in, something that stands still and never changes. He picked a fresh slice of cornbread from the offered basket. Constance, that's what you want. Me too. Religion wraps all the constants up into a never-changing God, a puppet master who pulls the strings and makes the world bounce up and down. God is constant. Inquiry stops at that point. End of questions. He does it all. Harris took a bite and chewed thoughtfully. On the other hand, scientists look for fundamental constants in nature, laws that stay the same for all observers, like relativity and the conservation of angular momentum, and numbers like pi and Planck's constant, and G, and the fine structure constant. He waved his slice of cornbread, and the cornbread constant in irreducible quantity. They laughed. Now he goes on to explain the meaning of the universe, why we're here, and the nature of consciousness, all of which, unfortunately, is too lengthy for me to go into here. So I'll just skip that and go a little further down to the end. Sorry. He looked around to each of them, the wives, the lovers, the husbands, the girl and boyfriends, the single ones, and the little children, blessed them all. He did not have to prove any of this to them. They knew it was true because they could see it in his face and hear it in his voice. It was the revealed word. They needed faith, and lo, they had faith. They believed. Don't believe in me, he told them. Understand me. Belief is too easy. You need to be curious, ask questions, get to the bottom of things, the fundamentals. He wanted to gently shake them one by one to impress it on them. You need to understand, not believe. They believed joyfully that they understood. He understood, sadly, that they believed.